me ask you guys a question. Do you guys remember the first concert that you ever went to? Do you remember? What was yours? No, maybe not. Somebody, yeah, what is it? Alice Cooper. Somebody, what's some other people, some concerts you went to? Somebody. Jesus Christ Superstar was your first one? Who said that? Pat? Wow. Gary, what was yours? Journey. Yes. The real Journey, not the one now, right? The real Journey. Man, I've never seen them. That is awesome. That is funny. Well, my first concert was not like most people's. When I was a teenager, my first concert was a Christian concert. Big rock and roll show at Hickory Grove Baptist Church. And you're thinking, oh my goodness, what kind of concert would be a Christian rock? Well, the name of the band was Petra. Did anybody remember Petra? Okay, how many people have seen Petra? Okay, how many people have met Petra? Okay, the story gets good. All right, so I went to my first concert with all my friends. Our youth group went over to Hickory Grove Baptist Church here in Charlotte. Hickory Grove used to be the place that everybody who came into town, so I saw DC Talk there, Audio Adrenaline. I mean, everybody used to come to Hickory Grove back in the day. So Petra played there. If you don't know this band named Petra, they were, 25 or more years. This rock band, incredible. Petra means rock. That was the name of the band. So rock like Jesus is the rock and rock like rock and roll was awesome. Loved Petra. The stage was awesome. Mark, you would have loved. The sound was huge. The lights were big. I mean, it was just awesome. The lead singer for Petra at the time that I started watching them, his name was John Schlitt. Now, he was awesome. I loved everything about him. First time, I was right on the front row just watching him. I couldn't take my eyes off of him. His stage presence, his voice, everything about him, I was just like, you ever been like this at a concert? My friend Randy said he went and saw Van Halen, one time, and he said he just stood in front of all of his amplifiers, Eddie, and he was just like, with all this sound coming out of him. That's the way I was watching John Schlitt, 17 years old. And I told my friends that night when we walked out of Hickory Grove, I said, I am going to do that. You ever thought, I'm going to be like him. I'm going to do that. And they said, what, sing for a rock band? I said, not just that. I mean, on this stage in this church, just like he did. And they're like, you are crazy, out of your mind. Well, fast forward for a few years, graduated from college, and I was asked to lead worship for a big college event at Hickory Grove, and Louis Giglio was the speaker for the event. We had this huge sound system, lights and everything on the stage at Hickory Grove, and as I was walking out of the worship center, being the worship leader for the night, I stopped and I turned around and looked, and I was like, I remembered that prayer that I asked God in this room, on this stage, and all those things. And it was just fabulous because I thought, how amazing, God, that you answered my prayer when I was 17 years old. All this, and that's what sort of helped begin a journey of me seeing God's faithfulness through prayer and just how much he loves his kids. Well, anyway, I wanted to be like John Schlitt. I wanted to sing like him. I wanted to act like him. I would listen to every one of their albums, and I would model everything that he sang. Like I would take one word and try to say and sing that word exactly like him. So much so that it didn't take very long before some people told me, they said, I figured out who you sound like. You and your band, you sound like John Schlitt. And I was like, yes, finally I have got there. Well, a funny add to this whole story is that fast forward even some more years later, and I was invited to open for Petra, believe it or not. It's all a true story. Opened for Petra at a ginormous Christian music festival in St. Louis. And they set up this big stage and PA and all this stuff out in this big field, and nobody came to it. Ever had those events, Mark? You ever done one of those? Like big promoter event, and then nobody comes. That's kind of what this was. But anyway, I got to open for them, and got to meet him, and we were staying in the same hotel. He was everything that I wanted him to be. He was so nice. He is just the greatest guy. Very encouraging, so humble. I love everything about him. Well, let me ask you this question. Do you have anyone that you want to be like? Like when you were a kid, did you ever have anyone that you wanted to be like? Maybe it was an actor, a sports person, someone like that you wanted to be like. Did you ever dress up like them? Like when you were a kid, Michael? Like when you were a kid, did you wear like the Did you wear like the Superman underwear, trying to be like Superman or anything like that? No? Okay. Who? Who? So I said, I can see that. We have all dressed up when we were kids, wanting to be like someone, act like them, someone we modeled our life after. It's awesome. Mimic them. I tell you, one time I watched Mary Poppins when I was a kid. And after it was over, I ran down to my treehouse and I jumped off with the umbrella. And it folded up. This is no true story. It folded up like this, and I almost broke both my ankles. Oh, gosh. It don't always work out like we thought. Remember the advertisement for Nike? Be like Mike. Be like Mike. Remember that? See, there's this desire in human beings that we want to be like something else, someone else. Well, that's the good news. That's some good news this morning for us. But it's also some bad news for us this morning, as we're going to see. So what I'm going to do this morning is I'm going to point out the good news. And then I'm going to show you the bad news. And then I'm going to end with the good news. So it's going to get better again. It's kind of going to go like this, all right? I want you to listen to what Paul says about being like someone, being imitators. Ephesians 5:1 says this, therefore be imitators of God. Be like God as beloved children. Now, many of us in this room have surrendered our lives to Jesus Christ. We've come to him, and we've bowed down to him, and we've surrendered our lives over to him. And when we do that, we become, it says, children of God. And the good news is that we have this dad as children that's perfect. He's perfect in every way. And this dad of ours wants us to be like him, and we should want to be like him because he's this perfect dad. Now, some of us have dads in this world that we want to be like and mimic, and some of us have dads that we don't want to be like. And we've had different experiences, but God is a father that we need to act like. Therefore, be imitators of God as beloved children. His son Jesus imitated him, didn't he? All through being obedient over and over and over. That's how he imitated God, through obedience, to show us what imitating him should look like. It's obedience is the best way to imitate Christ, to be like God. Listen to what Romans 5:19 said. For just as through the disobedience of one man, the many were made sinners, so also through the obedience of one man, the many will be made righteous. So what it says is through one man's disobedience, who was that? Adam. Then we were all of us made to be sinners. Just like through the obedience of one man, Jesus, we're all made to be righteous. We're made to be like God. Imitators, holy and blameless before God. So today is Palm Sunday. This is the day that we celebrate Jesus' entrance into Jerusalem to be crucified as the perfect lamb who would take away the sins of the world. The crowd was yelling, Hosanna in the highest, and they were praising Jesus as he entered, not as the conquering king, but as the saving king riding on a donkey through Jerusalem. Now, Jesus knew exactly what he was doing when he rode into the city this day. He knew exactly what was going to happen to him. He knew that he would be rejected by the same ones who were singing his praises. He knew that he'd be beaten. He was going to be spit on. He was going to be dragged through the streets naked. He was going to be hung on a tree, and he was going to die one of, if not the worst known death to human beings, crucifixion. And the biggest reason that he rode into the city that day, and there are a lot of reasons why Jesus rode into the city, but the main reason, the biggest one, obedience. He did it because he was obedient, because God told him to and God sent him. And he was obedient. He rode into Jerusalem as the saving king because he was obedient to what the Father had told him to do. Listen what it says in Philippians 2:8. And being found in human form, he humbled himself by becoming obedient to the point of death, even death on the cross. Well, that's the good news for us. Be imitators of Christ like he is an imitator, like he is being like God. And he's showing us how to do that by being obedient. We're called to be obedient. So that's the good news. If we are to be imitators of Christ, then we have to act like him. And if we aspire to imitate him and be like God, then we have to be obedient. Well, it sounds simple, right? But there is a question today. There always is. The question is this: do you want to be imitators of Christ? Do you want to be like Jesus, who was God in human flesh? Now I'm going to give you the bad news. This obedience and disobedience thing goes way deeper than you might know. So we're going to look at that this morning because it started in the Garden of Eden. Adam and Eve, it says that they were made in the image of God. And they had access to God. They could hang out with him every day, do whatever they wanted. They lived in a perfect world. They had everything they needed. And then one day they met who? The devil, in the form of a snake. Now let me tell you something about the devil. He is a great liar. He is a really, really good liar. And he can put all kinds of thoughts and things in our minds. And he's so good at it that we believe him more than we believe God. And the reason that he does that is because the devil really, really hates God. He hates God. And he's trying to get God, but you can't get God because God's not gettable. So what he does is, in order to try to get God, he goes after his children. That's us. Because we all know that the best way to really hurt someone is to go after their kids, isn't it? Anybody with kids would know. Yeah, take me, don't take them. That's the worst way to hurt someone, so that's what he's trying to do. So what he does is he goes and he tells Adam and Eve the greatest lie that they have ever heard. It's unbelievable what he tells them. Look what he says. God has told them, don't eat from the tree. And so there's the setup. There's the setup for disobedience or obedience. Don't eat from the tree. Yes or no, don't eat from it. That's what he says. Don't disobey. And if you disobey, there will be consequences. Now, the consequences for eating of the tree was what? Death. You will die. My parents, when I was a kid, my parents told me, don't do so-and-so, don't do this. If you do, you're going to get in trouble. But they never told me they'd kill me if I did. Like, that's not the consequences of my actions if I didn't bring the trash can in. But disobedience toward God means death. Because disobedience is a big deal when it comes to God. So I want you to look at the lie here and see if we can learn anything from it. Here's what the devil tells them. Genesis 3:4-5. You will not surely die, the serpent said to the woman. For God knows that when you eat from it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil. Now, first thing he does, he calls God a liar, doesn't he? He says the consequences will not be death. That is not what's going to happen to you. That's a lie. But interesting, the consequences, he says, from eating of the tree will be that you get to be like God. Well, that's interesting, isn't it? Let's look over Genesis 1:27. Look what it says. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him. Male and female, he created them. Well, it seems to me, then this is an incredible lie to tell them they can be something they already are. Isn't that amazing? And they don't see it. And so many times I don't think we do either. And the devil tells them, you can be like God. And what Adam should have said is, I am like God. I'm made in his image. I couldn't be more like God right now if I tried. Nothing could make me more like him than right now in this moment. And so he tells him this lie, and then there's the disobedience. So they disobey. They try to be like God. And what happens in their disobedience is that it makes them not like God. And then they're thrown out because you can't hang out with God if you're not like God. It's an incredible lie. What a fantastic lie by the devil. Disobey, and you can be like him, when the disobedience is actually what makes you not like him. Obedience, that's what makes us like God. Christ's obedience then comes and fixes the lie and makes us one with the Father again. So here he comes, the saving King Jesus, into the world. And he's riding as a donkey, being obedient entered Jerusalem to humbly lay down his life in obedience so that you and I, the grateful sinners, disobedient ones that we are, can be made again in the image of God. Look what Ephesians 4:22 says, if you wonder about it. You were taught with regard to your former way of life to put off your old self, which is being corrupted by its deceitful desires, to be made new in the attitude of your minds, and to put on the new self created to be like God in true righteousness and holiness. So how are we doing in regard to obedience? How are we doing with regard to imitators? Some imitators are fake, aren't they? Some of us may claim to be obedient to Christ, that we're imitating Christ, but we aren't. And let me explain how this works. A few years ago, I had a chance to go to the NASCAR race in Darlington. Some of you have heard this story before. It's kind of hilarious. A friend of mine says, you should go to the race with me. That'd be great. I don't have tickets. You can't get tickets for the race. Okay, well, how are we going to get in? Well, we're not only going to get in, we're going to be on pit road. Well, how are we going to get on pit road? Well, just wear black pants and black shoes. Okay. So when I got there, he did some finagling and talking to people. The next thing I know, I was in the trailer with the one of the Napa team. And they said, here, put this on. And they put a jersey on me and made me look like I was one of the pit guys. And I thought, wow, this looks really cool. And they said, now, when we push the car out, you just get on one of the fenders and push with us. And nobody will say anything to you. I was like, okay. So here I go, you know. And they opened up the gates, and all the people that are checking credentials and everything, the police and all, they just, you know, here comes me in the car, and all the pit team people and me, and I'm like, hey, guys, what's up, you know? And I go right out on pit road. And then, you know how they get out there in the lines, and they, national anthem, and then the airplanes fly over? I was standing on the very end with all the pit guys. I mean, the very end, on the racetrack at Darlington, jets flying over. I don't have tickets at all. I don't have credentials. I'm not supposed to be here. Totally fake. I looked like the pit team, but I was not the pit team, because when the race started, they said, hey, get over the wall. Get over there. You know? I didn't change a tire. I didn't hand them a gas can. One thing they didn't know in this camp was, as I leaned over one time to look at something and realized that my foot was right in the middle of the air thing. And I thought, oh my God, that'd been terrible. He runs out over the thing, and I, you know. Fake imitator. Not one of them. Just look like them. Look what Jesus says about the fake imitators. Not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven, but the one who does the will of my Father who is in heaven. On that day, many will say to me, Lord, Lord, did we not prophesy in your name and cast out demons in your name and do many mighty works in your name? And then I will declare to them, I never knew you. Depart from me, you workers of lawlessness. Here's what Jesus says. The ones who get to enter are the ones who do the will of the Father. The ones who enter are the obedient ones. He said do it, and they did it. The ones who don't are the ones who will do a lot of things like they are doing it for God, but in their hearts it says that they are workers of lawlessness. And that means they don't obey laws. That means they're not obedient. The ones who don't go, the disobedient ones. So who are we at Mission City? Workers who don't obey, or are we the ones who do the will of the Father? And being found in human form, he humbled himself by becoming obedient to the point of death, even death on the cross. Obedience to Christ, means death to a lot of our brothers and sisters around the world right now. We know this. Obedience to Christ might not mean a big house and money and fame. It might mean just the opposite. Obedience to Christ does mean that you will bear fruit, that we are fruit bearers. And the fruit that we bear is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, self-control. So are you being obedient? And how can you know? How can I know if I'm being obedient? Well, we can look at the fruit of the obedience. Would Jesus look at you and say, he is kind, he's faithfulness, he is peaceful. She is good. She has self-control. Is that the way that Jesus would describe you if you are an imitator of him? Okay, Kyle, so let's say I'm looking at all this. I'm considering my obedience to Christ and my surrender. And you said that this fruit comes out of me, but what else? What else is there for me? Look what the obedience got Jesus. Philippians 2:8-11 says this, and being found in human form, he humbled himself by becoming obedient to the point of death, even death on the cross. Therefore, and here it comes, because of his obedience, God has highly exalted him and bestowed on him the name that is above every name, so that at the name of Jesus, every knee should bow. In heaven and on earth and under the earth, and every tongue will confess that Jesus Christ is Lord, to the glory of God the Father. And he says, when I go there, let me tell you what's going to happen. John 14:2, in my Father's house are many rooms, and if it were not so, would I have told you that I go to prepare a place for you? If I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and will take you to myself, that where I am, you may be also. That's what your obedience gets you. Isn't that amazing? No amens? Man, the saving King Jesus, he rides into Jerusalem on a donkey because God told him to. And in his obedience means that you don't have to live a life unlike God anymore. But through him, you can be made again in the image if you are obedient to him. And your obedience guarantees the taking. Listen to this. I will come again and will take you to myself. I'm ready to be taken, aren't you? I don't want to be invited. I might miss it. What if it comes in the mail and I don't get the invitation? I don't want a choice. I just want him to come get me. Just take me. I want a guarantee. And when Jesus says he's going to come and take me to himself, there's the guarantee. For you yourselves are fully aware that the day of the Lord will come like a thief in the night. Let me tell you what, thieves don't come and ask for things, they take them. They take what they want, and Jesus is not going to come and ask for you. He's going to take you, and I praise God for that. I don't want to make any more decisions, do you? On that day, I just want the saving King Jesus to come and take me to be with him. He don't need my permission anymore. I want to be found faithful, and I want him to take me with him. Are you, Mission City Church, being obedient for the taking?